A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. For no other foundation can be laid, but that which is laid, which is Christ Jesus. Now, if any man build upon this foundation, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be manifest, for the day of the Lord shall declare it, because it shall be revealed in fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work burn, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. This concludes the reading of the Holy Epistle. Mark, how you doing?
Okay, now I'm all thrown off. Wait, what did I get myself into? Thought this is Flannery O'Connor.
It is Flannery O'Connor. I just felt like we needed to start off with a Bible verse there for the book Revelation, not the book of Revelation, just the book Revelation by Flannery O'Connor. And
Yes.
by book, I mean short story. That's the one you read, right?
That is the one that I read. It was very interesting. I really enjoyed it.
Well, let's go through a quick synopsis here. Most of this book most of the short story takes place in the waiting room of a doctor's office. Mrs. Turpin has brought her husband in. He's got a big wound on his leg, an ulcer, I think that's what they called it, from getting kicked by a cow. And she strikes up a conversation with the people in the room, but not all the people in the room are the same. They've got what she repeatedly describes as a white trash family, including an old lady who's living in a dress made out of an old flour bag or grain bag of some sort. And then older woman with her college-age daughter. The college-age daughter's got a real nasty look on her face. And there's this rather long conversation about the different types of people, and it takes all types and all these different sorts of things. And eventually, there's this heightening tension between Mrs. Turpin. I want to make sure I've got that right.
Yeah, Turpin.
Yeah, Mrs. Turpin and some of the other people in the room, because she very clearly, thinks that the white trash family and the young lady who's off at the university with the book is, really not all that worthwhile. Hello, Roxane, you made it.
I did. Hi.
Hi. I'm just in the middle of summarizing the plot of Revelation for people, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So,
okay.
There's eventually just kind of this weird moment where Mrs. Turpin keeps on, antagonizing the young lady with the book, and but like very subtly. This isn't like throwing the gloves off and starting a hockey fight. It's just little darts coming in. And the young lady throws the big, thick book she's reading right at her, like smacks her in the eye, gives her a black eye, looks at her and says, go, something like, go back to hell, you warthog, you ugly-faced warthog or something like that. And then the whole, office breaks out in bedlam. The doctor has to come out and sedate the young lady and drag her off to the hospital. Fun fact, which I learned from reading Roxane's book that she wrote about Flannery O'Connor. Hold on, I should have brought that over here. Is that Milledgeville, Georgia, was the home of the largest mental hospital in the United States, in the world. So she got to see that. Those people around there, and so the whole day is just completely thrown off, and quite shaken up by all of that. Mrs. Turpin is. So they go home. She takes a nap, but her husband takes a nap, but she can't get this incident out of her head. And you horrible warthog, go back to hell from where you came. Like that just keeps on eating on her and gnawing at her. She goes and talks to the help on the farm, and they all say that she's great and are shocked that that anybody would say something so nasty to such a nice and proper lady there. And but she doesn't really believe it. She's like, just can't get this, image of the young lady glaring at her and saying that out of her head. It's really cut her deep there. Her husband goes to take the help back to their home in the pickup, and she's hosing the pigs down in their fancy new pig parlor where they have a concrete floor and everything, so the pigs are not wallowing the way they're accustomed to. And she starts like yelling at God, and like, why did you let her say that? Like, why is this message being given to me? And then she has a vision right at the end of the story of a great mass of humanity marching into heaven, and the white trash and we'll say the black people going in first, and then her class coming in, and even their virtues are being burned away. They can tell that they're farther back in line. A little bit of the Catholic doctrine of purgatory in there. So that's a very, very quick summary of that. So Roxane, if you want to, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and say anything, any of your first thoughts on the short story we've read.
Yeah, I'm Roxane Solonen, and I wish now that I've started this that I would have invited my two co-authors, because maybe one or two of them could have, because there was three of us that took this trip to Milledgeville, Georgia, and it was the 50th year of anniversary year of Flannery's death, and we had connected and learned about Flannery a little bit and wanted to know more. So we decided, let's take a literary pilgrimage down there and follow in her footsteps. So we started at the Trappist monastery in where Thomas Merton was buried, kind of keeping with that literary theme, and ended up in Milledgeville. So it was quite a wonderful experience. But I had read all of her short stories, but when I just read them, I really got to know her mostly through her letters, was where I really got attached to her. But I really wanted to kind of go back and review some of her fiction too. And I loved her short stories. I didn't get to the point where I was analyzing them. I was just experiencing them. So this is kind of gives me another chance to go back and look at them a little bit differently. One of the things, as you were talking about her, Miss Turpin, I was thinking of the word we use now is triggered. she was triggered, right? Someone says something and it goes deep. So yeah, and there's a few things in here. There's something I underlined because I was finishing up today. If anyone has anything else, you can go ahead as I'm trying to find
the thing is that once Mark starts talking, he's going to be going for a while. That's why I wanted to give you the first place.
Okay. Well, Troy says I interrupt people, so I've been known to do that too. Well, I want to find it because I don't know. It's eluding me now. So Mark can go ahead. I'll still get my things in. I can hold my own in that way. So
okay.
Yeah, I thought the story was very interesting, and a lot of the theme was hierarchical. Like, where do people belong in the hierarchy? So this for me might as well have been eating ambrosia. I was like, this is just lovely. And especially some people, you can't break it out by how people look necessarily, right? Some people belong here and some people belong there. And
there was that one scene where it's like talks about her going to sleep trying to categorize people. Yeah. And then, like it's all too much for her because sometimes I'm going to say black people, but in the book, it's a little bit different. Sometimes they're like, kind of high up, you've got the dentist who's got 2 Cadillacs and a nice brick house with a swimming pool in the backyard, and then the white trash people. And then there were people like her who belonged higher up, but didn't have quite as much money. And so had to be down on the farm there. It says, and as she drifted to sleep, she had this image of all of these people being crammed into a train car and being sent off to a gas chamber. It was like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
That's
you get
that.
She's got this dichotomy, this inside outside dichotomy, which you know, I mean, I don't know how Flannery does it, but talk about observant and detail oriented with people and personal behavior. That whole side inner monologue that is, it's not the same as the outer monologue, but it's also not opposed to it. It's just kind of adding the negative detail in while she's giving a positive face. And that's like her worth is tied up in giving a positive face externally in you know, being charitable, basically. That seems to be her big value.
Yeah, her description of the woman she was talking to was that she's pleasant.
Yes.
They're very pleasant to talk to, has all the proper manners, you know. And I'm not against pleasantness, but it's not the same thing as, you know, charity. Those are like charity in the theological sense, loving God above all things and your neighbor as yourself. It's not quite the same thing. It's very often the correct thing to do, but pleasantness isn't the whole of it.
I think one of the things that makes us uncomfortable about Flannery's stories is because we know we've done that. I mean, at some point, Flannery had to have done it herself. You can't write a story about like this without having had some of those thoughts. I'm not saying it was the same exact thoughts, but at some point in her life, we're prone to sin, right? And oh man, the thoughts that you can have in your head while you're saying something else, right? You can spew whatever you want. And then of course, I'm sure the whole pharisaical thing of, you know, I'm glad I wasn't, you know, I'm glad I'm not that kind of person, right? Whoa, right there we are condemning ourselves immediately, right? And then it's like we just get into this jam. You just get further and further and you're cornered like her. Like you just keep going further and further into that mindset and until it was like the truth was revealed, you know, through that comment. And it's just, yeah, struck the heart. And it's like, oh man. But ultimately, that can be a grace, right? When we're pierced through like that and we have to stop and think, why did that bother me? You know, I've had those moments where someone said something's like, oh man, I cannot get that out of my head. Like, you know, but it just strikes me like that Flannery was so human to have, that's the only way she could write like this, that she also was a human being that had some unkind thoughts about people at times and had to deal with that.
See, I kind of, and this is just me trying to interpret things, but I kind of see her both in the role of Mary Turpin and then Ruby Turpin, right? Mrs. Turpin, and then also being Mary Grace, who was, that's the name of which is a great name, right? A great name right there. The young lady who throws, you know, the book at her and calls her a wart-faced hog or something like that.
And then strangles her.
And it strangles her. I forgot that part. Yeah,
don't forget that. Yeah, that's why she got sedated.
Yeah. So you know, because I could imagine her, you know, having that kind of like inside outside a pleasant face there, but I could also imagine that being the sort of thing that would really bother her, just because she was so observant and like she'd probably seen, maybe without quite as much drama, this exact sort of conversation with all the different layers of insinuation and like, you know, class communication and all of that happen. And like, she probably didn't like it. And that was, you know, like something that would, and maybe she felt like, you know, throwing the book at somebody, strangling them and saying, go back to the hell from which you came, you know, wart-faced hog, and then didn't actually do it. So wrote a story about it instead.
Yeah, that's definitely the observer in Flannery. She has been in a place where some conversations were happening and she had to bite her lip, and pretty soon it was like too much and she wanted to burst. Like she had to have experienced that too.
She always throws herself into her stories somewhere, and it's usually fairly obvious, and maybe it's my focus on the meaning crisis, but man, the connection between, you know, trying to apply ontology and build categories for everything and being stuck in your head, and then that being your own personal hell, and the thing is too, like this story, you know, is particularly good, right? You can see the threads at, we'll say, the societal level of the South at that time, because definitely, like, just might as well be a movie scene from a documentary, like, definitely this is how things are working down, especially in Georgia of all places, for sure. But also it's that layer of that human connection that we mentioned. It's her injection in the story, so it's even more personal. It's not just human connection. It's like her at some point in some reflective fashion, but also this larger idea of when people get stuck in their heads, they kind of it's almost a self-critique, right? Because you're critiquing everything, and eventually you run out of things to critique because you can't put all the categories, you can't put people in all the categories, and so now you have to critique yourself. And at first that goes positive for you, and then later on it goes kind of negative for you. And just how she gets all those threads in such a nice small number of pages. Since I'm highly dyslexic, I really appreciate short stories. So that was wonderful.
One thing as a married woman that really made me like flinch a bit was when she wanted to tell her husband, she wanted to be honest about what had happened, but she just couldn't quite do it because she didn't want him to get that thought of her in her head. I feel like I've had those moments where it's like, I mean, I just want to be completely honest with my husband, but like there might be some things like I wouldn't even really want him to like look at me a certain way, or to know like how someone looked at me or something like that. And then ultimately she like reveals it to the farm help or whatever, and then it's like, do you see what you're doing? Like, do you know where you're going, woman? Like, this isn't a safe place either. But like, she saw it that way. And then yet at the same time, when she got right down over the ledge, she realized, nope, I can't actually say the words because now they're going to have that idea in their heads. And then, yes, it's so interesting, like for her to realize that ultimately their opinion really didn't matter because there's a disconnect there anyway. It kind of reminded me, so my husband and I just got back from Mexico, and we were so, I love meeting people everywhere. And we were at a resort where they were super, super, just kind and really a great work ethic, like compared to what I feel like we see around here. And we just were so appreciative of them. But then we silently wondered, like, do they really like us, or are we those rich Americans that, I mean, this was a trip through my husband's work that we didn't have to pay for. So, but, we kept wondering, like, is this authentic, do you think? Like, I want it to be authentic, but I also know they might be seeing us as these rich white people that are coming to, whatever. But then there was a guy in a boat who we did a little tour, and he just thanked us so much because he said our like only commerce is tourism. And so we appreciate you guys so much. So we want to believe like that we see, like that we can see our common humanity. I grew up on a reservation where I was hit with these kind of disparities and questions from the earliest age. I was 1.5 when we moved to the reservation, and I was called white trash at one point. I mean, we weren't white trash. My parents were professionals, but that happened. Those things happened. And so I've been pondering these issues from the beginning. So anyway, I went all over there, but there's just a lot of things that strike me. So from the relationship with a marital relationship and the fragility there, I would say, and then also just wishing, that those barriers aren't there, but yet knowing that they probably are and wondering about that. The first time when I was away from the reservation, I went to college in Moorhead, and I remember going to the mall in Bismarck and seeing some Native Americans. And for the first time, I realized, because growing up in the reservation, we kind of were absorbed into the culture. And I realized, oh my gosh, they see me as a white girl. Oh no, like I don't want them to see me as a white girl. I'm not a white girl. Like I grew up with them, and it was just the weirdest moment of like, oh no, they just think I'm just like every other white girl, but I'm not. Like, so it's just interesting to ponder these things. And I think, Flannery brings me back to those questions, and how do you resolve all that? Man, it's messy. I'll say that.
It is. It's sort of, it was.
I just brought us in a different page. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's the exchange in the doctor's office about, oh, we should just, send all the black people back to Africa, right? Which is just like, no. And the only person who was in favor of that and kind of like vehemently in favor of that was the white trash woman. And it's like, I suppose, like, I can't connect with that idea because I've always been, just one of the nice people who came from a good family, and like lives my life that way, but I can't imagine life on that level, like on the bottom level where you're just kind of scraping by to survive. And that's like that's kind of, I think, the whole point of like the ending of that story, with the like the pigs, and hosing them down is her like having an understanding of all of these things that I inherited as a person who had a certain family, a certain education, had a certain amount of guidance and formation in the world. Even if they're actually like good and sensible and useful for you, they aren't the same thing as virtue right there. So that's that line right at the end of the story where even their virtues are being burned away there. And like, well, what's actually left at the bottom of that is, like what did I actually build versus, what did I just inherit and inhabit on account of the people who raised and the culture that raised me there. That right there, I think, is kind of the central question, because we don't see any like real charity inside of her head. Like Mother Teresa would have looked at the poorest of the families there and would have just like, I love these people, and I want to be of service to them. And that's, that's hard, but it is something worth, admiring and, imitating to the extent possible. And, but it's actually really hard. So I think that's a lot of what this story is about.
Yeah, I think too, like she placed the at least some of the white trash below the people who needed to go back to Africa, which I found interesting. And I think, if you've actually been in those environments, in those situations and been around, we'll say both sides, the at the bottom, it's very competitive. And so the people at the bottom don't want to compete with the other people at the bottom. Right, even if they're sort of below them, like they don't want them there, right? And that's where some of that stuff comes from. And a lot of the people that we'll say are well off, but may also be immigrants or whatever, and have their own challenges in that area. We'll often talk a big game, but actually are perfectly reasonable to most people. And that was one of the things I appreciated about the story, was all this nuance about. It doesn't really matter what categories you have quite so much, because they don't fit quite right. Or you can't just put somebody in one of these arbitrary categories. You derive the category from the behavior of the person. And that came out rather nicely in the story, which, that's what I thought was really lovely.
Right. So I think the appropriate way to talk about this, and the way that we're not allowed to talk about this anymore, is to say, racism is a result of original sin, and discrimination of all sorts is a result of original sin. And because I, inherited the effects of original sin from my parents, and all the way down from the first sin of Adam, that means, I'm a little bit racist, and I'm quite capable of discriminating. And if we framed it in that way, I think like all of our discourse around it would be a lot better, because it's like talking about eating too much or not exercising enough or spending too much time on your phone. Those aren't like things that we're especially ashamed of, because they're so common, and popular a sin, and everybody's got a little bit of that, that we don't have to be all uptight about it, versus maybe the order of the world that is, as far as I can tell, passing away, where, admitting that you're racist would be like blowing your head off. It's like, oh, you don't do that. That's going to kill you. But, and then I'm done.
I was just going to say another theme to me that pops out is like power. It's the playground bully, like whoever ends up on top. And I feel like when she was like spraying down the pigs, like that's the only power she had at that point. Like the only thing she could really overcome or be, more powerful than were the pigs in the pig pen, but I just so much of like, even I've noticed like in raising a family and just in how people interact in the world too. It's kind of just like a power trip. It's like whoever can get the most power is on top and can get their way. I mean, that even happens in family dynamics, and it's just, I guess that there's that pride there, but it's also survival. Like people know, like if I have more money, I'm going to have more power. And so I got to get lots of money and I will do anything to do that. There is a real like deep human drive and like sort of a reason for that. But the Christian virtues call us to challenge that. But it is very, very innate and like just a part of humanity to want to be on top. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. In his riches, man lacks wisdom. He is like the beasts that are destroyed. It's a pretty good line. Somebody should write that down.
Should have written it down.
Yeah, should have written it down.
It doesn't even do this any good if you write it down now. It's too late. Yeah, that's that hierarchical aspect, and the dichotomy between her inner voice and her outer attitude, which was generally charitable, right, towards people. Although again, there's a little bit of disparity there, and she is attacking to some extent, right?
But when she attacks people, she's just so pleasant and sweet about it, with layers of possible deniability in what she actually said. But the way that you say things, does actually matter
passive aggressive? Yeah. Could it be categorized as passive aggressiveness? Is that what that is?
I don't think
it's Southern. It's very Southern. Why bless your heart?
Yeah.
It's very Southern. Right. And it is a form of passive aggressiveness, right? Where you're, you are attacking with that plausible deniability. I think that's the perfect way to say it, Father. Plausible deniability about the fact that you're attacking anything at all. And it is that, it comes from having to be polite. People down here are way more polite than everywhere else. I've been all around the United States, and whoa, nothing's going to beat this place. There isn't even a second place in this race.
Mark, remind the audience where you live.
I'm in South Carolina.
Okay.
And from New England. So New England is not that. I mean, New England has a politeness in a way, but it's not that overt, sort of like in New England, you presume in New England that people are dangerous in a way that you have to be careful how you approach them, right? So it's all caution. It's polite, but it's cautious politeness, right? Whereas if you go to New York and New Jersey, you're going to get more of this. People are aggressively polite when they want something, and very standoffish and cautious when they don't, which is very different from Boston in particular, we'll say. But down south, everyone is always trying to make a connection and be polite all the time. And it's just very, very different. Like in the Midwest, everyone's very polite, but very reserved. Very, very like, okay, you're way over there, which is where you need to be. I'm way over here, which is where I need to be. And as long as that goes on, we're going to get along just great. Right. And on the West Coast, everything's kind of a mess. People are just sort of all over the place because there's no unified culture on the West Coast. That's always been the problem with California and Oregon and Washington and even into like Idaho and stuff, where things are just a little weird. But capturing that flavor of the South, where we'll say your condemnation of yourself and others is all in your head. it's never expressed out into the world. And then it looks like Flannery is struggling, as I imagine everybody down south has always been, with, you know, how much of that should be exposed and how much of it should be kept in, and what do we do about it? And you know, for me, and not being the expert on these things, that's why you're here, Father. This seemed like a very Protestant-y type problem that the Catholic Northeast would not have. That's just from personal experience.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like the interior monologue judgment thing is certainly not something that I'm immune to as a Midwestern Catholic. But maybe I've got better traditions and tools to deal with it, right? Because it's like, you know, as a priest, a sin that I will hear many, many times in the confessional is, I've had some pretty judgmental thoughts about people. Yeah. That is one that comes up over and over again. And it's, well, you know, we've got a place where you could admit that. And, you know, Father's been in there for half an hour. He's starting to get tired and doesn't really care more than just enough to do his job. And so he'll give you a penance. He'll just tell you to make sure you pray for people and, you know, ask for the Holy Spirit to give you the grace of charity and say 5 Hail Marys and now make your act of contrition, you know? So maybe we've got some better tools to deal with that. Maybe
that's the ending. That's what I would say the ending is exemplifying, is the Protestants don't have a way out. So they're trapped in their own internal monologue. They can't even share it with their husband. Right. And then they're stuck with self-condemnation out of their own imagination because they don't have the tool of private confession. That would be one thing that I thought was definitely in there.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I also kind of see the vision at the end being like a vision of purgatory. So, you know, Miss Turpin, she's got like some vices that she isn't attending to well, and like, you know, some moral improvements that could be made, and, you know, some places where the Holy Spirit can come in and begin to heal things, but she's not like wicked. You know, she appears to pay a decent wage to her help. She probably, you know, is loyal to her husband, goes to church on Sunday. So she's not so wicked, which is why I read from 1 Corinthians 3, where, you know, Catholics anyway will see a little hint of purgatory in there. And there's especially that line right at the end where even their virtues, you know, the virtues are burning up because, well, she could see by their shocked and altered faces that even their virtues were being burned away. Yeah. So, like a little image of a purgatory.
There's another line in here where I underlined, and on I have it on page 215. It's how am I saved and from hell too? And I thought, that's a Protestant idea. Like, right? Once saved, always saved. It's like, well, how do you know you're how do you know you're saved? Like we hope we are, but you know, we're not taking that for granted. So I thought, wow, that's kind of a Protestant dilemma there, you know? Like, I mean, I don't know. I've been kind of pondering and talking about or seeing conversations about once saved, always saved right now, and have had, some actual conversations with people about it. And you kind of get into a little bit of a jam there, right? Like it's more black and white, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, gosh, that's a great point to bring up there. I kind of missed it, right? Because like it's just built into Catholicism. Like, you got some things that you need to work on, but because you're part of the body, you know, and like let's imagine that you're basically in a state of grace, then like you'll be okay. There's nothing you need to worry about. You know, you're what is it? We just do the basic things, right? Just do the basic things. Go to mass, go to confession, pray the rosary, don't skip leg day. You know, you stick to that, everything's going to be just fine. But it presumes, like the go to confession part and don't skip leg day, especially, just kind of presume that, like, you know, there's room for growth, even though, let's say, down at the root you've been healed. But there's still things that need to be unfolded and to expand, and possibly things that need to be healed as well. which I don't know how, the once saved, always saved can provide that. And it just seems contrary to the New Testament, which is why it isn't Catholic doctrine, and which is why we talk about the basic rules: go to mass, go to confession, pray the rosary, don't skip leg day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I meant about the Protestantism, right? Was that it's all binary. And then I think Sally Jo talks about it like a death cult, right? Because everything's either heaven or hell. It's all about the afterlife. It's nothing about this life, which is weird because they're the hardest workers around. I mean, the Protestant work ethic is a thing. There's no question, right? And so it's weird. It sets up this weird dichotomy because you're stuck in that binary between heaven and hell. And there's no purgatory, man. I mean, it's not there. It causes a real problem when you don't have that third option in the way to transition.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, I was having a discussion with a friend who's Protestant, and I have had an experience recently with another Christian friend who kind of pushed away from me, and so I was kind of explaining about him, and he's like, well, about her, and he said, well, she probably wasn't a Christian then in the first place, and I'm like, no, she really believes she is. Like, no, I mean, I see the fruits of her, that it's just that something happened. And he's like, well, nope, she must not have been a Christian. I'm like, I no, I don't think so. Like, that's not how she would see herself and how she lives her life. It's just that there's this little breach in our friendship here, and which had to do with some different things that have happened in our nation recently. So
that's some extreme. I mean, I don't know.
This is what I get for just hanging. Like, yeah, it just left me like, I don't even know where to go with this. Like, no. And he's the nicest guy too. And it's like, no. So it really presses on me to go, this is just I can't wrap my head around this. That's
a stuck in binary thinking right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like either you're a good person and you're a Christian or not, and there's not like, well, sometimes Christians can just be a little bit awful.
But that's super
so
common.
Like when Charlie Kirk was killed. When Charlie Kirk was killed, I was with him that day, and he said, well, and when we found out he died, he said, well, he's going to heaven. And that's so hard. I'm like, maybe, I don't know, and then we had another conversation that got uncomfortable, and it's like, oh man, I gotta live kind of in the gray here. I can't. I don't know if Charlie Kirk's in heaven. I hope he is. Yes, there's signs that he was trying to move in that direction, but I can't, like, that was it. Like, well, he's in heaven now. He's seeing the glory of God. I don't know that. So I can't be with you right now. You know what I mean? It caused a separation. It caused a separation between the two Christians. Like, I can't, I'm not on your path. I mean,
here. that is so interesting. Cause like the day after I said mass for Charlie Kirk, cause the horrible tragedy. And it's like, well, we better pray for him. And I had the free day. I didn't have any stipend or mass intentions I had committed to. So oh man, that's wild. See, this is what I get for only hanging out with Catholics, is like, I don't have any of this intel about things that people say. So
yeah, well, there you go. That can be a gift for you to ponder. It's crazy. It's wild out there, And these are our separated brothers and sisters in Christ. But I tell you what, Father, it makes me so appreciative of our faith. Like, there's such relief in the Catholic approach to things. And I'll say in particular, being able to pray for our loved ones that have passed, like, what a beautiful thing that we can have that hope and that connection, and not just kind of like excise them to one place or the other. No, we live in like the gray area of hope, and being able to pray for them, like, to have that, it's beautiful, and it's made me appreciate it even more as I encounter the other. So, but anyway, she was definitely a woman, and Flannery, caught in between those two worlds, and she had such a command of the faith, I think, as we see in her all of her writings. But she had to have been haunted a bit by what she encountered in the everyday,
Yeah. And speaking of haunted, I want to know what you guys think was inside of Mary Grace.
Oh, She definitely felt misunderstood. It's like the world was happening and assessing her, and she couldn't even, like, she didn't even get a chance to defend herself. So all that rage came out then, you know. I think she felt really overpowered, and she was probably quite intelligent, you know. She read a lot.
Trapped. I like the reference to Wellesley because I know where that is. Been there many times. Beautiful lake. You're walking around the lake, past all the mansions, and I do mean mansions over there. Yeah, it's it's interesting because there's always that that tension, but clearly that, you know, being up there and being into books. And this is one of the things that my mother said when she was down here. She was at the cancer treatment center, and she's like, look, they only have one little, you know, section for books. No one down here reads. It was super important to her. And I was like, oh, I don't care. I was always burn all the books. I don't care. I can't read anyway. It's too hard. So screw it. But like, it really upset my mom, and I was like, well, whatever. I mean, they're not into books. They're not into books. They grow all their food. It's okay. I like to eat. It'll be fine. You know, and then to be placed in that circumstance where, you know, imagine you're a reader and you come home for you know, summer break or whatever, and now you're trapped among these people who you can't communicate with. I mean, roughly speaking, you can't. And that's not just class, and it's not just sort of North and South. All of that too, right? It's also just vocabulary and capacity, and because the same thing happens in New England. There's plenty of places in New England you go that aren't too far from Harvard. By the way, Good Will Hunting, of course, comes to mind because that was a stunningly accurate movie. You know, where you know, you go down to Southie and you talk to those boys, and they're you're just not talking the same language, and and you can't communicate with them, and that's a real phenomena. But in terms of, you know, what she was, you know, what happened to her is, for me, I mean, it's just basic possession. I mean, who strangles somebody else like after, like,
I don't think I've ever witnessed anything like that before.
I have.
Not my okay, but you're from the big mean city. I'm from nice North Dakota, all right?
Well, no, the big mean city would not give you that. That's the misnomer. The big mean city doesn't give you that at all. Maybe certain parts of the big mean city at certain times of day, but the big mean city won't give you any of that. But man, you stray one street too far out of Boston, maybe in just the right place. Sure, you could see that there. But that's why, for example, when I went to Ireland, everyone's always telling me the trains and the buses and the public transportation in Ireland, you know, and in England and in Scotland and in all these places is wonderful. It's actually not. It's actually the same as the United States, like identical, which is to say, if you were on the subway line that went through Brookline, Massachusetts, where I lived, it was awesome. It was as good as any European train or subway system, easily. It was that good. You're on the red line, south of the city, forget about it. Forget about it. Translate. It's a mess. It's not safe. The orange line, south of the city, south of Boston, don't go on the orange line south of Boston. Just don't do it. North of Boston, you're fine, by the way. Still late because it's the same line. But, you know, there are differences. And a lot of it is where you're coming from and where you're going to. So if you have money and you go to Europe and you take public transportation, the public transportation is wonderful. It's also wonderful here if you do that here. It's just that people don't talk like that because when they're here, they don't take the public transportation. Right. That's really the difference. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like, so when you're up north and you're reading books and you're at Wellesley, right? Beautiful campus. That's one world. But when you're down south and you're next to the mental hospital and you're in with all these people, right? And these signals come at you from random places, and you know, maybe you feel insulted, you throw the book, that makes you feel better. But to actually strangle somebody and have to be restrained off of doing that, now you're talking about, you know, a possession of something, right? And then So we'll go with the psychological explanation a la Dr. Peterson would be ideologically possessed or some other equally unsatisfying term. But might as well be demons, man, because what are we talking about? And then that, if you look at it that way, it brings an extra dimension into the story in my mind, where this is the trap of the Protestants. The demons are constantly signaling you into hell because you ain't got no other options. Like it's all heaven or hell and afterlife. So and this tenuous connection between, well, how does what I do affect what happens when I die? Because they don't have a way to resolve that in the Protestant denominations. It's just not there. They don't have the tools. So it must be really tough. And I thought the story captured that quite nicely, actually. I thought it was really, really interesting. And I don't know what it's like for you crazy Catholics, but maybe it gives you a better appreciation for all the cool tools and capabilities that you have that are missing outside of Catholicism and Orthodoxy.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. I was right there with you. It's like, yeah, the closest that psychology can get to possession is, like psychotic schizophrenia. And like that's the only tools they have to do it. So like, no wonder that she got, dragged off after the manner of the insane asylum. But what's really interesting is that, it's like the whatever was inside of her didn't have to lie. Right? Because I get, like sometimes when I'm out here on the internet, people just accuse me of things which they would have no proof of me having done, in which I have not, in fact, done, because I've got my collar on, and that apparently tells them everything that they need to know, right? And that doesn't bother me for more than about 5 seconds, because I'll just, kick them off the stream or ban them or whatever. So those sorts of lies don't really get into me, but like when somebody tells the truth about me and like it kind of cuts me, it's like, oh man, I've got to actually go deal with this now. That's a pain in the butt, and so like whatever was inside of her, even though it was like trying to hurt Mrs. Turpin, like it actually just kind of like opened this wound up. And I'll say over and over again that Flannery O'Connor writes about the operations of God's grace in extreme circumstances. When she was washing the pigs, it had this vision that was like actually a healing revelation for her, because she could actually see herself as she was, rather than all of the images and layers that she had put up about herself in her mind, and all of the negotiations. Well, if I can't be me, then like don't make me this kind of person, make me this kind of person instead. So it's just interesting, like the way that God would have used the words of a demon that were trying to tear Mrs. Turpin down, and actually make that a healing occasion for her. Which, man, you've got to be like level 10 Catholic writing to pull that off. You can't just do that. It's not quite as magnificent as Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, but it's still pretty good.
It's interesting too, like that the pigs were her safe space, right? That was the place where, like you were saying, she didn't have all those other voices, and she just was met with her own, because she could overpower the pigs completely. But it was like Jesus brought her into the desert or something, someplace away where she could actually assess herself.
Where that legion of demons maybe could come out of her and go into the pigs.
There you go. Yeah, interesting. There's another possible parallel.
Yeah, there's a bunch of symbolism in that story for sure. A lot.
When you guys were talking about being in that place where the demons and, kind of where she was at in her head, I was thinking on a little lighter level, there's been times where I've been in like a room of people that maybe aren't Christian, and which maybe you can't relate to, Father, but I've been in different like business meeting situations, like maybe through something I go to with Troy, and the people just really aren't strong Christians there, and it feels a little like hell because it's like I can't be myself, and even if I were myself, it wouldn't matter. For example, when we were in Mexico, one of the last nights we were eating with a group of people, and one of the people was one of the head guys. And he's probably very wealthy because it's a big company and they were the ones that were putting this on for us. And we were kind of just like getting to know each other. And I really wanted to tell him about getting to meet Pope Leo because we were talking about traveling. And I'm like, yeah, you know, when he was, I don't know, somehow got on that topic that we'd been in Italy, and I really wanted to share with him who we got to meet. So I think Troy was kind of, I think, because I kind of was like, Troy, I want to show him this. And he's like, maybe not a good idea, but like I already had the picture out. I was ready. So I showed it to him, and it's like, it didn't even like, he's like, went on to the next thing. And it's just like in a different setting, that would have had a completely different response. And sometimes when I'm in those places, I feel like I'm in a little hell where I can't even share who I am. And even if I did, like I said earlier, it wouldn't matter. So I kind of identified a little bit with her in that feeling like nobody's going to hear me. Nobody's, you know, it doesn't matter. Like they're completely missing who I am. So it really doesn't matter. So I'm just not going to say anything, but I hopefully wouldn't like have an outburst like that later. But anyway, there was just is a little bit different perspective there on feeling different than everyone around you. And I don't know. So it makes me curious about Flannery. I know she was kind of like that in her childhood. She was very introverted and things were happening around her. And she kind of was the one loping in, you know, in the background and not always hanging out with the cool kids. So, but that, you know, that formed who she was and what she was able to write about and how she was able to have such a strong pulse on human nature. So, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have the advantage of being able to just walk into the room and make non-Christians feel uncomfortable like I do.
That's the other way, yeah.
Oh man, I've had some fun encounters, you know, like yeah. Anyway, we don't need to talk about that.
You can't hide it. You have the collar, so that you're exposed immediately.
Yeah, no, I start imposing my, you know, presence on them. They don't impose it on me. But it has its trade-offs, certainly. Yeah. I'm just fascinated by the way that the story ends, because it's like she's looking down at the pigs and then like has this vision of looking down basically at herself and seeing it as she really is. So just the brilliant way that grace was manifested. Even in the story there. And then it's like, yeah, this is what God does is he hoses us down with his grace so we don't have to wallow in our own mire, you know. Thanks be to God.
I have to admit, I couldn't remember how it ended. It'd been a while since I'd read her stories. And I like happy endings, and I was scared that something bad was going to happen. So I was very relieved, like when the end came, I'm like, oh, good. Like, yeah, I can handle that. I can handle that vision, and I can handle that. I think maybe there's been some revelation, you know. So that was a relief to me.
Yeah, it was interesting, Father. I don't know if you caught the line in here. If Jesus had said to her before he made her, and I was like, oh, that's that billboard that we saw that like Sarah flipped out about. She's like, what? And I'm like, I'm telling you, man, the Protestants. And she's
what
like,
billboard is that? You have to remind me. I'm sorry.
I forget where we were driving, but we had come back from Florida or something, and so driving from Florida to South Carolina or vice versa, and there was this billboard. It's, you know, something like, you know, did you know Jesus made you? And Sarah was just like, what? No, it's God. It's not. It's like, what are you talking about? Because she's, you know, she's full Catholic, right? Catholic high school, Catholic everything, right? Fully grew up Catholic, unlike me. but even I know, like, that's not right. What book are you drawing from here?
It's a very imprecise and confusing way of speaking about it.
Yeah. But I just thought that was funny because I'm like, oh, that's that billboard down here that I saw somewhere. It might have been in Georgia because you got to go through Georgia to get to Florida from South Carolina. So yeah, it looks like Milleridge there is just south of Athens, but by a few hours. But it's the same distance, like 3 hours there. I didn't realize it's 3 hours away. I could go on a Flannery O'Connor pilgrimage. That's not bad.
Yeah, maybe next winter, we could do something like that.
Oh yeah, fly on out. We got room for you, Father.
I'm way too busy right now. This stupid thesis is just consuming my life. So,
but we're gonna have a big party when you're done, and then you're gonna throw a conference out there in Fargo. It's gonna be wonderful. We're all looking forward to it.
It's gonna be wonderful. We should have Roxane as a speaker at that conference.
Of course.
I'd be happy to. Mark, what is your faith background?
Oh man, how much time do we have, Father, about the meaning crisis?
Oh, no, it's not going to get dark out here for a while. So
yeah, it's. I mean, my father's side is French Catholic, and my mother's side is Irish Catholic.
Okay.
And they did not bring me up at all in any kind of anything.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Right. Which is one of the things I identify as the so-called meaning crisis, which Jordan Peterson talks about and Dr. John Vervaeke probably more succinctly discusses, which is a big problem. Some see it as, quote, generational. I don't think it's generational. It's a lot bigger than generational. That caused Jordan Peterson's rise and, best-selling books and all that out of a psychologist. And I love Jordan Peterson. I hate psychologists. And I hate Canadians. So it's a little weird. But, here I am. At least the Canadians that aren't French Canadians. French Canadians are, of course, God's chosen people on earth. But the rest of the Canadians that are not. So, I really wasn't brought up with any of that. And I have this story, Roxane. Maybe she'll get shocked by this appropriately, like all people should be. When I was in Catholic junior high and high school. And it was a very small school. It was a very expensive school at the time. And the state of Massachusetts, I believe it was the first year they passed this law that you had to offer an ethics course. You couldn't force people, even in a Catholic school, to take any kind of religious courses. So they had to offer an ethics course. And because my parents are completely retarded, the school completely folded, and the state is totally derelict and should be brought up on charges against humanity. They somehow let me, what was I, 15 or something, decide to take an ethics course, because I was the only one in the school taking an ethics course. Everybody else was, perfectly fine with the rest with the regular curriculum. And they made me read C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And at the end, it was the vice principal of the school. There's 100 kids in this school. It's grades 6 through 12. It's a tiny little school, right? And he asked me at the end. He said, "So who does Aslan remind you of?" And I'm like, Aslan's a lion, dude. Like, what do you? Like, I'm like, Aslan's a lion, and he's like, I know, but Aslan is killed and then resurrection. Who does that remind you of? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You do know this is a fantasy book, right? Like, it's a talking lie. It's not a real, it's not a real lie. Like, I'm seriously, like, I'm just like really confused by this guy. Like, you completely. And he goes, "Oh, Aslan's like Jesus Christ." And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, but I suppose I was. So, big problem in society when you have people, that grew up that way. That's not, that's got to have all kinds. Are you baptized? I have no idea. You'd actually have to ask one of my relatives. I don't.
And you should know, Roxane, that I've been trying for 5 years to get him, into the church, and he's all like, "Oh, blah, 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 I'm not going to do it."
It's tough to think that the grandparents didn't make that happen, but I don't know, because I have no idea how rebellious my parents actually were at the time. So I don't know. I don't have any records, so that's unfortunate.
well, it's time. I would invite you to OCIA, and I think you should become Catholic.
Then you don't have to have that. I'm a Catholic.
Yeah, you don't have to have that weird binary thing going that you don't know where you're going. So
I don't have that problem. I've got other things going on. I'm doing all right. All things I never got trapped in the meaning crisis, so that's a lucky me.
Yeah. It'd be fun, Mark. I'd go down there. I'd do the wedding. You know, it'd be so much fun. We could go do it at the Basilica in Columbia.
It is a pretty.
You could wear
building.
a suit. Yeah,
it's a pretty building on the inside. It's still like, what are the Catholics doing? Like, it should be the prettiest building in town, guys. You used to know how to do. You go to Croatia. It's that way. Like, why can't we do that here? What is going on? Why are you hiding the beautiful stained glass windows? Why is the Catholic Church not the prettiest church in Columbia? That's insane to me. That's nuts. You guys have gone astray. You got to fix it. Chop, chop. Let's go. Let's go.
Well, Mark, now you have both Roxane and I praying for you to become Catholic. So, you know, this might just start the countdown here.
I see. Well, both my my grandma and my nana are passed away rather recently. Actually, they lived into their 90s. So, probably need replacement prayers on that end.
They're probably praying for you.
Yeah, they could still pray for you, Mark. They might even be better at it now.
Is that how that works?
Yeah.
About the system. Yeah. I didn't get any memos or notifications on my email. Nothing. So what do I know?
Oh man. Well, I'll tell you what I know. I know is that this has been a delightful conversation. Roxane, I'll make sure that you know when we're having these, and you're always welcome aboard. I think you had some very useful insights, and Mark here, you know, him and I talk all the time. And once again,
thank you for including me. Yeah, and I will invite. I think the one of our co-authors is pretty tied up with little kids, but the other one, I think, would really enjoy these conversations, and maybe both of them. But I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'll invite them too next time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Pass the link along, and remember, you can read all about Roxane and her friends' travels to Milledgeville, Georgia, in Finding Flannery, available at fine retailers all over the place. I put a link to the Amazon in there, and I'll make sure there's one in the description of this video. And so thanks for coming aboard, and you all have a blessed day.
God bless you. Thank you for doing this. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.